All right, thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Bullpen Blues. As always, I'm your co-host Kevin Dixon, joined by our good buddy David Esser. David, how we doing?
Yeah, good morning, Kevin.
Morning to you. Good morning to
Just
you.
want to, kind of express I've always been a diehard Yankees fan.
Oh
It was
man,
it was it was awesome watching our boy Giancarlo Stanton beat the Braves last
oh,
night. So,
mashed
great.
last night.
His one homer was ridiculous. But yeah, great day for the city of New York last night. Real fun.
I saw this stat, and I wish I could find it now, but I didn't realize that we were going to start. So that is on me. Um, he has the hardest hit ball in like 11 of the 30 stadiums. Insane. Nobody hits the ball harder than that guy. He had like 122-mile-an-hour ground out last week. Can you imagine trying to field that?
He's a strong dude, and this is way off topic, but it was something I wanted to bring up before we jump into the Phillies, start talking about kind of where they stand. Like the Yankees crushed the trade deadline. Like,
Yeah.
geez. I mean, they are 21 games over 500. There was a point where we thought they were like done, that they were going to sell. And they brought in Rizzo and they brought in Gallo, and they're one of the best teams in the American League. And I think it's just cool to see because you combine that with the trade deadline that the Dodgers had. I mean, they've been 12-2 since Trey Turner was activated. Max Scherzer, we know what he brings to the table. Like very rarely do you see two teams get that much better from the trade deadline. I just think it's like I think we're going to look back at this deadline in 10 years and be like, wow, that was one of the biggest trade deadlines in baseball history.
Well, I do want to mention as well. I'm so down bad about the Yankees that before the deadline, now I work for a sports book. I do bet here and there, so I look at the lines a lot. I remember I was looking at the Phillies division line. I forget what it was at the time, but I looked at the World Series lines, and at that point in time, I forget what their record was. This was right before the deadline. The Yankees were 50-1 to win the World Series. Now I couldn't tell you exactly what they are off the top of my head. I'm going to probably guess they're 10-1. After the deadline, they were like 17-1, so it changed that drastically. And I was kind of just like, man, because at the time I'm like 50-1. That seems like crazy value. That's $20 to win 1,000. And I didn't take it, and now I'm like, damn, like that seems like such a layup now. Like looking back, even if like they don't win 50-1. So I really appreciate you reminding me how well they've been playing in the second half. Thanks a lot, man.
They've been good. I don't think they're going to win the World Series. They don't have enough pitching.
That's incredible value, though.
That is incredible
That's some
value.
value.
They
Um,
are. They are.
you did mention the Dodgers as well, which, like you said, this is off topic, but it makes me want to mention. Actually, it's really not off topic because it transitions right into where we're getting to. The Padres are on the other end of that spectrum, David, as they have just completely free fallen. And for as aggressive as they've been in the last 2 years, I'm actually pretty satisfied to see what's going on right now. Because I've kind of been a guy who's pushed back at times. Like, man, they are really just going all in. When they had the Scherzer deal in place that never happened before we went to LA. I remember just being like, they're doing all this just to lose in the wild card round. Well, David, they might not even get to the wild card now, as they are just completely falling on their face.
Yeah. Did you see they fired their pitching coach the other
Yeah,
day?
with 5 weeks left in the season, that's very 2019 Phillies esque. Bringing in Uncle Charlie.
Yeah, they are very much panicking. I mean, they signed Jake Arrieta, who pitched about 3 innings, and then went to the IL with arm tightness or whatever he wants to call it. That's
They signed Arrieta, who flopped, and then they fired their pitching coach. It's like, well, did you think he was going to have success? I think the pitching coach did a great job. That Arrieta only gave up like 4 runs in 2 innings or whatever it was. Yeah, it
yeah,
should be a win,
that's impressive for old Jakey boy these days. Yeah,
especially in Colorado. Yeah,
Padres are an interesting team because you look at the roster on paper, very good. Obviously, they've dealt with a ton of injuries towards the top of the league in terms of games missed due to the IL. They might be first actually. The last time I checked, Tons of national hype. I mean, if I have a few friends who are baseball fans, but not diehard baseball fans, and all they want to talk about is Tatis and Machado and how they're the greatest players alive. And then you look at the Padres, and yeah, they're tumbling right on out of the wild card race, which again segues beautifully. The Phillies, Kevin, they caught the Padres at the right time. They took 2 or 3. They won this series, and it's probably the most disheartening series win the Phillies
Yes.
have had in the last
Yes.
decade. That was
Only the Phillies can win the series and have you being like, seriously.
Yeah, it was, and obviously we're all talking about Aaron Nola took a perfect game into the 7th inning. Took a perfect game into the 7th inning. Was ruined by a Brad Miller error. Things got out of control. They were still in line to win it. Aaron Nola on his 117th pitch with 2 outs gave up a home run and went to extras. The Phillies lose, and I remember after that game, like I had no words. I remember Kevin was texting me all
Very
fired
upset.
up, and I just had nothing to say. I was just like,
very upset.
I don't know. They
You
lost.
said I'm going to bed.
I'm going to bed. Like I got nothing here. There's been a lot of talks of Joe Girardi should have pulled him. He probably should have. Like, he definitely should have put the closer
Definitely
in.
should have. Definitely should have.
To me, I kind of look at a game like that and it's like, man, imagine the momentum if Aaron Nola throws a complete game and beats the Padres in San Diego. They were so close. They fall 1 pitch short. Luckily, Kyle Gibson kind of steadied the ship the next day.
Yep.
Kevin, big takeaways from the series. What do you got?
Now, getting into that second game, before we do, the first night, Phillies win another Matt Moore start, which he's done a lot this year. I don't know how. It's very, very on brand for the Phils to win that game and then lose the next day on Nola's outing. Harper hit a homer in game 1 that I don't think's landed. Basically, it was just a nice win in that first game of the series. The second game, Odubel Herrera hits a missile to start. They lead the entire way. You mentioned the Brad Miller error. David, it was a ground ball right to him. Like, right to him. I don't understand how you mishandle that to ruin a perfect game. Very Phillies-esque. He gives up a hit later that inning, but they get out of it. He keeps moving. I don't. You mentioned he shouldn't have been in the game. I do agree at that point in time he shouldn't have been. I agree with letting him start the 9th inning. Because he pitched so well. He only gave up 1 hit to that point. He was just absolutely cruising. I agree with the idea of, think of what this will do for Aaron Nola. If he can go on and pitch the complete game and Phillies win, rebound after a hard series in Arizona, which we didn't even mention. I don't even want to talk about that, to be honest with you. But after he walked Tatis, that's where I was like, okay, he should come out, go to your bullpen. He's worn down. He's at 110 plus pitches at this point. We're past the point in the year where we're trying to build somebody's confidence. That's how I kind of was viewing it. Would it have been great if he would have finished the game? Of course, it absolutely would have been fantastic. But it's more about winning the game right now than it is about getting Aaron Nola his complete game. And that's kind of where I felt that the Phillies' priorities lied. They were trying to get Aaron Nola that complete game so he could feel really good. I would push back and say if he goes 8 2/3 and gives up 1 hit, how can you not feel good about that kind of outing? Instead, he gives up a 2-run homer that ties the game, and it alters the entire weekend. The Phillies win the series, but they lose a game that's a backbreaking loss because they lose that. They win that series, but they lose ground in the standings over the weekend, even while winning 2 out of 3. That's just where we're at in the year. You got to win the games, and I just felt that's why they traded for a closer. That was the whole reason Kennedy's here is for those spots. So, but they rebound on Sunday because they're the Phils. That's why they've been hovering around 500 all year. They're able to get up when people knock them down, but they just can't maintain any type of success. So that's why they're 63 and 61 right now. And after winning 8 in a row, what are they? 3 and 10. I don't know the exact number, but it's not good. But disappointing weekend, even while winning 2 or 3.
I want to transition into some Ian Kennedy talk and some Kyle Gibson talk here in a second. Kind of reflect on that trade a few weeks post deadline. Last point on Nola, and it really, really sucks that he wasn't able to get that win.
Yep.
And after thinking about it for a few days, I probably agree with you. I think they should have gone to the bullpen and said, "Hey, Nola, you gave us 8 2/3 against one of the
Yeah.
best teams in baseball. You're a superstar. You know, with your family in attendance on the road, like you rock." I think the one good takeaway is this is two of Nola's last three starts
Yeah.
where he's looked like legitimately the best pitcher in baseball. He did it against the Dodgers for about 4 innings, and then he did it against the Padres for 116 pitches. He really, Kevin, he had one bad pitch.
Yeah.
He
He
had
still pitched
one,
very well. He
he
pitched
had one bad
fantastic. And like,
pitch.
yeah,
Um,
he was great.
and we've been saying this all year with Nola, can he break out? Can he finally get back to that, 2018, 2020 version of himself that we know is there because the stuff is still nasty. His curveball is still one of the best in baseball. When his two seam, sinker, when it's moving the way it's moving, it's unhittable.
Yep.
Uh, Kevin, it does feel like he is due. And again, we've been saying this all year, but it feels like we're so close to him piecing together multiple dominant starts in a row. If he can give the Phillies, you know, not that level of production, obviously, I mean, he's not throwing a near perfect game every time, but if he can start giving the Phillies 7, 6 2/3, 8 innings every time he takes them out, they'll have a chance of sneaking their way back into the playoff conversation. If he can't do that, they're going to have zero chance. So it's at least promising that we're starting to see kind of vintage Nola creep through again.
Yeah. And I think you could argue the Miller error kind of set the tone for the remainder of that game. I mean, if he makes that play, David, then there's an out in the seventh. Nola's still like under like 70 pitches at that point. Like he was cruising. Like that changes everything. Drives the pitch count up, more stress on Aaron's arm. Who knows? I mean, it's one of those, what if Miller makes that play in the seventh? It seems so minuscule considering it's a couple innings difference, but I mean, he probably threw an extra 20 pitches in that seventh inning because of that error. Who knows where they end up? But so they win 2 out of 3 in San Diego after getting swept by Arizona. Um, Possibly the most predictable series win of the season. Like, of course, they were going to win that series after they just got swept by Arizona. But ultimately, David, this stretch coming up now, where they have Arizona for 4, I think they have Washington and Miami. It's like their next 10 games, 8-2. Like we're at the point in the year now where you have to start dominating these bad teams. We keep talking about this poor schedule. It doesn't mean anything if the Phillies don't take advantage. So they just got a big series out of the way with San Diego. Now they got Tampa Bay. These are two of their tougher series remaining in terms of talent level. Uh, Now that they have to make their move again, like it stinks because we already made our move to the top of the standings, and then they fall flat on their face. So hopefully we can make our move, and then there's just not enough time left in the year for them to fall flat on their face. Now that's the ideal scenario, I think, for the Phils.
Yeah, and then there's been a lot of talk about the Phillies' easy kind of second half schedule. That's something that personally I never put a ton of value in just because I know our
Yeah.
Phillies and
You
how
really haven't.
they,
Yeah,
they
yeah.
they
You
love
really
to
have
play
not.
down, but then they love to play up to their opponent. I mean, like we saw a completely different ball club in San Diego compared to Arizona, and it's because the lights were on and they knew they had to up their game. That said, you start looking ahead at the schedule. Arizona for 4, you got Washington, you got Miami, you got Colorado for 4, you got Chicago, you got Baltimore, you got Pittsburgh for 4, you got Miami to end the season. Like there's a lot of in quotes layups, but the Phillies, they got to start doing some serious damage if they want to make that move. Because although the Braves lost last night, they have been playing some really, really good baseball
Yeah.
since the trade deadline. They look like a team that's prepared to win the division again, and that's kind of they've been very quietly, very sneaky with their approach to the season. They didn't make any crazy moves at the deadline. They just added some depth across the board. But they've been playing good baseball. Hopefully the Yankees do us some more help these next 2 days. But the Phillies definitely have to they got to go on another 8-game winning streak. You know,
I know.
they got to win 7 of their next 10. They got to do something to start making up that ground.
For sure, and, to coexist with the Phillies run coming up here, I mean, the Braves play a tough stretch here. I think they got the Yankees now, obviously. They got the Giants and the Dodgers on deck. So, this if you look at the remainder of the schedule, aside from when they play head-to-head with Atlanta, this is your best opportunity to make up ground. So we'll see if they're able to. I think it's key that you get to that Atlanta series at the end of the year, even if you're 3 games out. Give yourself a chance, because I think that looms large. I mean, they're 4.5 out, but they still play Atlanta for 3. So there is still that opportunity to make up ground directly head to head against the Braves. I do believe it's a 2-team race at this point. Atlanta's kind of running away with it at the moment, but hopefully, we still have some show to go here. But next time we hop on the microphone, hopefully the Phillies have closed the gap, because they're 4.5 out again, David. This is where they've been all year. We've been in this spot all season long. If anything, and we didn't even mention that we were going to discuss this, but if anything good can come out of what the Phillies have done so far this year, they don't make the playoffs. Hopefully the front office can see that 8-game winning streak, how it kind of electrified the city, and what this fan base will do when you're winning. You know what I mean? Like, maybe that will encourage Middleton to go over the tax now, to do whatever it takes to win, because David, they won 8 in a row. Like, it's not, it happens in a season. The Yankees just won 10 in a row. Like, teams do this, and the fan base got behind the team. So, if anything, hopefully that's the best thing that can come out of it. If they don't make the playoffs, is the front office can see, okay, if we do put a winner on the field, people will come. So, I don't know. Looking for a silver lining.
Little Field of Dreams reference there at the end.
Yeah. Unintentionally. Unintentionally. So, yeah.
No, I mean, you make really good points. There's always kind of the running joke of is Philadelphia a football town or a baseball town? I think it's a baseball
I
town.
think it's a very underrated baseball town.
I think there's nothing quite like a fully packed Citizens Bank Park where every single person in that stadium is there for baseball, not just the atmosphere. They're not just there to
Yeah.
hang out with their friends. They're there to watch baseball. I remember I keep thinking back to the shot of Zach Wheeler, his final pitch against the Mets when he threw that complete game shutout. The
Yep.
place went nuts, and it gave me 08, 09, that era. It
Yeah.
gave me those types of vibes, and it's right there again. I think the key point is the fan base is also not stupid. They're very smart, and they see through the BS. And the second
Yeah.
this team got swept by Arizona, everyone was like, "All right, we've seen this before. We know what's happening. Like we're done. You got to prove to us you're a good baseball team again." So we talk about being 4.5 games back. We talk about the schedule. The Phillies, once again, they got to prove they're a good baseball team, because at the moment they're going to miss the playoffs again, and we'll be starting up our offseason pods, which is not something I want to do. I'm sure you don't want to do it either. Like, we're not there yet.
No, and I mean, we're 124 games into the season now, and we mentioned it on the last show. I just can't believe that we're almost finished here. They only have 38 games to go. We're in the stretch run now. The Eagles are getting ready to get going. Really, no expectations for the Birds this year, but I'm not ready for the season to end, David. So let's just try to squeeze as much as we can out of this, because you're right. Before you know it, man, it's going to be December. It's going to be, at least not for me, not for you, down in the hotbed of Texas, but it's going to be miserably cold. I'm going to have to suffer through trying to convince myself that the Flyers are good, which I do every year. I try to convince myself. Good to watch Ben Simmons, just brick jump shots. I mean, we're not going to have the Phils, so I'm going to try to enjoy these last 38 games. I hope that there's more, but these last 38, I'm going to try to enjoy them as much as I can.
Yeah, I had someone on Twitter respond to one of my tweets about the Phillies saying, "Come on, dude, it's football season." Like, no, I'm not there yet. It's August. Like, we're still playing.
Look, man, I look at the Phillies like the Eagles. The mentality that people have about the Birds, like, That's where I'm at with the Phillies. That's why me and you are doing this Phillies. This is a Phillies podcast. Yeah, not many people have the shows where it's dedicated to one team. Yeah, that's why we're here because there are Eagles. You know what I mean? So it's not football season. It's Philly season. It's baseball season.
100%.
Yeah.
All right. So shifting gears back to kind of some of the topics we had today, Kevin. Alec Bohm,
Oh my goodness.
Philly's top hitting prospect in a decade. Placed second in the Rookie of the Year's voting last year. We really, really thought this guy was going to be. I had him penciled as a potential All-Star
Yep.
heading into this year, and obviously, those expectations were probably a little bit aggressive, but just you looked at the
You
bat
fired up.
speed. Yeah, you,
Had a
you
good
look at
year
the
last year.
profile. You got a 6'5", uh, you know, 240 plus monster at the plate. We all felt very good about this kid. The bat started to heat up in the second half. The defense never followed suit. Kevin, the Phillies sent Bohm down to AAA when they activated Reese Hoskins. What are your thoughts on? I mean, this is a big decision. A lot of people kind of played it off as this was always going to happen. This is not. This is not normal.
Massive decision.
This is a huge decision. He's not going to be there, for these next couple of weeks. They'll probably get him back up here in September. Maybe not. They might keep him down in AAA. But this is a controversial move, Kevin. What are your thoughts on the decision?
I think I've made. I don't know. Like at least on Twitter, I've made it clear how I feel. I wrote an article recently for Section 215. I think this is not saying Bohm hasn't been bad in the field, especially because he has doesn't hit for power. But the Phillies rationale of we want to clear his head, he's struggling, we can't play him every day, it's weighing on him too much. You just want him to get right. We're going to send him to the minor leagues. He's going to get it figured out. I mean, David, they're playing Brad freaking Miller every day, who I love. Brad Miller. Here's his numbers since June 1st. This is Brad Miller. In 61 games, he has 30 starts in that time. Most of them come in the last month, pretty much. David, he's hitting 156 in that span with a 280 on base, 639 OPS. He has 7 homers, 3 doubles, and a triple. So he has 9 singles because he has 20 hits in that time. He has 48 strikeouts, David. The rationale of we're going to send Bohm down because he's struggling, who in that same time frame, since June 1st, Bohm's hitting 291 with a 359 on base. He's not slugging too much. His OPS is only 744, but he's hitting the ball and he's getting on base. And the Phillies are 32 and 26 in his appearances in that time span, whereas with Brad Miller, 32 and 29. So it's not drastically different. But you get the point I'm trying to make here is they are using that excuse with Alec Bohm of we want to get his head cleared, but then instead they're going to play Brad Miller, who's offered you nothing for 2.5 months now, outside of the occasional home run that he runs into. It's very Phillies-esque to prioritize playing a soon-to-be 32-year-old veteran over guy you used the 3rd overall pick on in 2018, and just kills the guy's confidence. I know he's been struggling, but I don't know. The bats disappeared in Arizona. Bohm was barely playing. I would rather have Bohm in the lineup than Brad Miller. It is what it is, but I guess now with Hoskins back, it changes things a little bit. But I don't understand the Phillies' handling of these younger players.
Yeah, and I've heard the same logic of get Bohm's head cleared for 2022.
Get him playing time. What are you talking about?
Look, you want to know the best way to teach a guy to hit MLB pitching or to field MLB hitting?
Yeah.
It's to play against MLB players.
Yep.
And I mean, we've seen this the past few seasons. Scott Kingery, they sent him up and down, oh, we got to clear his head. It didn't work. Spencer Howard last year, we'll send him down, clear his head. We'll have him start in AAA, get ready. It didn't work. There's so many. Adam Hazley, up and down, clear his head, didn't work. There's so many examples of that not working, and I think the Phillies kind of just use it as. And it's crazy because the front office has flip-flopped all over the place the last couple of years, and they still don't appropriately handle their young talent. It's like, look, Alec Bohm, he's not a good fielder. We get it. He probably shouldn't be a third base. He should be a first baseman. He should be a left fielder. You're 4.5 games out. You're 2 games over
Yeah,
500. You're not in this position where you're this juggernaut that just has no room for a young talent. We're trying to win now. It's like, no, he's your best young hitter. He's been hitting 300 plus the last month and a half. Like, he should be out there.
yeah,
For if nothing else, just for the experience of playing in close, important ball games down the stretch in late August and September. Like, this is a guy, whether they believe it or not, like, he has to be good if this team is going to be a consistent, postseason contender the next couple of years. They need him to be a piece, no matter whether it's at cleanup, whether it's at leadoff, whether it's at left field, whether it's as the DH. Like, they need him to be a piece. I think just giving up, because that's what it feels like. It feels like they gave up. Throwing them down to the minor leagues so that they can use, Freddie Galvis, Ronald Torreyes, Didi Gregorius, like these
yeah.
guys, Andrew McCutcheon, who struck out 5 times the other night. Like, to use these guys who probably aren't going to be on the team next year, who aren't really offering a whole lot. Like, none of these guys are insane at the plate or in the field. Torreyes has been a nice piece, but, like, let's be real. He's not an everyday player. He should not be an everyday player over Alec Bohm. Like, to value any of those guys and their at bats and their playing time over Alec Bohm, it's really hard for me to wrap my head around that logic.
Yeah, if anything, I would like Torres because I like Ronald Torres now as well. Big fan. We were hard on him, but he's a piece of the puzzle now. But they never really seem to utilize the defensive replacement late in games. They did a few times with Bone, but that's something I probably would have looked at on a little bit more. You mentioned left field. Hopefully, if anything, we can get him some reps in the outfield now that he's down in AAA.
They already said they're not going to do that.
It's just,
Yeah.
well, what are we doing?
I don't know. They're just going to keep running him at third base, I guess, and just have him
Is it
field
why though? He's
AAA
not going to stick there. There's no way he sticks at the hot corner. He's not playing either corner. I don't even know if he could play first base. And that's
It's Kevin. There's no 6'5" third baseman in baseball. It's just not like,
yeah.
and they tried because he's an athlete. He's very athletic. He moves pretty well. He's got like half decent hand-eye coordination. He's got a good arm, but it's like he's just, in my opinion, he's a corner outfielder. And I think you can stick him out in left field.
I think he's athletic enough. He could be a decent one.
I think he'd be a better option right now than Andrew.
Yeah. And
Like,
you can, I mean, I don't know. Like we talked about this, but like you can hide a guy in the outfield in left. If you get a good defensive center fielder, which is something the Phillies need to do, you can like, kind of hide somebody out there. They did it with Burrell. They did it with Ibanez. They did it with Reese Hoskins in 2018. Like you can kind of stick somebody out in left field and kind of just, hey man, make the simple plays. You don't got to do anything crazy. Because I saw this debate on Twitter the other day about how like, oh, well, he's not going to be a good defensive left fielder anyway. Yeah, you can get away with that a little bit more than a guy playing third base where the ball gets hit at him all the time. So
just catch the flyouts and
yeah,
field the balls off the wall and throw them back.
like get your angles down. Cut the ball off if you need to. Hit your cutoff man.
Kevin, like I said, I watched the Yankees game last night, and they had an outfield of Gallo, who's a very good defender, but like he's not nimble.
I was gonna say he's a good defender.
But they had Gallo, Aaron Judge, and Giancarlo Stanton as their outfield.
It's crazy.
Guess what, Kevin? It wasn't a problem. In fact, Judge made an incredible play in center field because he was so tall. He covered like 80 feet in 3 seconds because he's a giraffe out there. I agree. Like, but there's got to be a plan. This kind of feels like
the Braves are playing Ozuna in left. Like there's some really bad outfielders, man. Like, come on, he could play out there.
But even to take that one step further, even if they're not going to stick him in the outfield, I would still rather just continue to play Bohm at third base over a Torreyes or a Galvez or whatever, and rotate Didi out or whoever. Like, there's other ways to keep Bohm in the lineup, but not anymore because he's in Triple H.
He's not here. Yeah. Hopefully he's back in September, which is a week away.
Yeah, and then like if that's your plan, okay.
Cool. What was the point of optioning on them?
Like, just wasted an option, but I'm not so sure. And that just kind of ties into we didn't have this on our notes, but I kind of wanted to bring it up. Like the whole Freddie Galvis thing in
Hasn't even
hindsight,
played yet, David. It's August 24th. They traded for him at the deadline. He's not even here yet. Like, why did we trade for him?
that felt like the biggest PR. Like in hindsight, like when the trade first happened, we were like, okay, like Freddie Galvis, he's a really good
Yeah,
defender.
for sure.
Like in hindsight, it felt like a PR move where they could be like, hey, everybody, we got Freddie Galvis back. Like,
Did they know he was still going to be out? Like, we're coming up on a month, man. It's Gibson's made 5 appearances, 4 starts. It's been a couple weeks. Like, why? Like, what is wrong? Like, did they know it was this serious? I sure hope not.
I mean, Kevin, like last time I checked, Galvis was hitting 2 of 14 in AAA. Like he's not playing
Yeah.
well in AAA. Like he's not ready. He's not good right now. Like
Yeah.
I'm not like Torres is probably better.
Yeah, I mean, look, I still want them to get him back for his glove, but it's at this point, it's kind of just like I can't believe he's still not here, and I don't even know what his timetable is. I have no clue. I haven't heard anything of multiple times earlier in the month. I heard this weekend, which we just heard. Not to get off topic, but we just heard this for a week and a half straight. Oh, he should be good tomorrow. We're hoping for tomorrow with Reese Hoskins. They said tomorrow like 6 days in a row, Dave. It got to the point where I texted you. I'm like, they need to stop saying tomorrow and just be like, we're hoping we can get him back soon. We won't get too far into it because we're wrapping up here soon. But their mismanagement of the injured list this year is one of the most underrated things that we haven't talked about enough. They do not know how to use the injured list. They've mismanaged it consistently. There's no communication with anybody to know what's going on. It's been pretty horrible, man. It's a shame because it's just been a consistent theme all year where they're holding on the hope and they're holding on the hope and they're holding on the hope. And then the guy gets put on the IL anyway. So that's something that needs to be evaluated moving forward as well. They get back to the main point. I can't believe that Galvis is still not here.
Yeah, just my one quick comment on the injury list is they've played a lot of games this year with a short bench, which is not
A ton of games.
something you want to see. All right, but pivoting to our last.
They had the one game where they had Vince and Wheeler pinch hit, didn't they?
Mm-hmm.
They were that short.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's bad.
Yeah, I think that was a game where Bryce and JT were both injured, but sitting in the dugout. All right, so pivoting to our last point here, we've already started to run a little bit late. Destiny Legardo, Phillies Nation, friend of the pod, she tweeted out yesterday a poll, and I just thought it was an interesting poll that I wanted to bring up on the podcast. She said, which soon-to-be free agent pitcher would you sign to a one-year extension right now? And the options were Hector Neris, Archie Bradley, and Ian Kennedy. Kevin, I want to hear your thoughts, and then I will give mine.
I would probably sign Neris and Bradley. Depends on how expensive Kennedy is.
What if you had to pick one?
If I had to pick one guy?
Yes, because that her poll said to pick one.
Oof, that's tough because I want to say Archie Bradley, but with his peripherals would suggest that Neris would be the more likely one to have success. I guess man, that's tough.
I'm putting you on the spot.
I'm going to say Bradley.
Okay.
Just because Hector Neris has been here 8 years. I know the Hector Neris experience.
I voted Archie Bradley myself.
Nice. All right.
I know, and I've been critical of him, but I think he's really I think there's something to be said. And we've talked about this a lot, knowing how to win. And I think Archie's just a dude. I think he goes out there. He wants to be pitching the 8th inning. He wants to be pitching 40 pitches if he can get there. I think he's a dude. I think he's good for the clubhouse.
Yep.
I think he's a guy who, honestly, should probably retire a Philly if he wants to stay here. So yeah, I'm Team Archie bringing back. I think they will for what it's worth. I think he'll
275, man. I would agree. I would think he would be back. He has 7 wins, which is pretty crazy. 2.75 ERA, and look, we've been critical of his FIP, which has been pretty high all year. It's down like a whole run since the last time we talked.
What's it now?
It's still 470, 4.70.
5.7.
It was like 5.8 something at one point. So he's at least been more productive lately. And ultimately, that stat is important to me, but ERA is more important. So even if he is being, at times he's been lucky. Hey, that's fine. It's nice to be on the right side of that for once.
Yeah, he would be my first choice. But my kind of follow up point to that is I quote tweeted the poll and I said, if they're all willing to sign back, I'd probably bring all three back. And my
Yeah.
logic there was, I like what Archie brings to the clubhouse. I think he can continue to be an eighth inning guy for the team moving forward. Kennedy's older. I want to say he turns 37 in December. Not a lot of stuff there, but it's kind of the same thing. We're like, look, Kevin, the Phillies, Phillies can't nitpick with their bullpen. If
Nope.
Kennedy continues to get saves for them, because he's been pretty good. We didn't talk about it. We'll probably get to it next episode, just about him and Gibson, kind of the roles they've played. Kennedy's largely done what they've asked him to do. He had a huge save against the Padres
Yep.
during the Matt Moore
Bulldog.
start. Did not
Yep.
think he had that in him. He did. Struck out Machado to end the game. That's impressive. Um, so if he wants to come back, especially, I mean, he signed a minor league deal with the Rangers last year. So my hope is he's not asking for a whole lot of money.
Yeah.
You bring him back, and then with Hector, Hector's tricky because I agree with you. I think sometimes there's a point of saying, "Look, man, you've been here a long time. You haven't had a whole lot of success with you on the roster. You're asking for too much money. You could probably get more money to be a closer somewhere else. Go pursue that option." I do see that side of the argument. With that said, if Hector is willing to come back and to continue to pitch in this middle relief role, which he's been so much better at, Kevin. I don't have the numbers on me right now. He has been so much better pitching in the
Yeah.
sixth and seventh inning
Who would
compared
have
to
thought?
the
It's
ninth
it's
inning.
almost as if we knew all along that he wasn't a closer.
And Kevin, he's given them multiple innings because he's doing it
Yeah.
so efficiently. He's taken down the sixth, he's taken down the seventh, he's done for the day.
He
It's
took
just
he
so much
took down
better.
the second at one point. I mean, this guy's all over the place.
Um,
He just
yeah,
the second inning.
I've given him the nickname "No Ninth Inners." Just keep him out of the ninth inning, and he's one of the team's best relievers, if not their best relievers. So if he's
Yep.
willing to come back in that role, he's never played for another team, so there's a chance he takes a hometown discount. I'm all for it. They can't pay him $5 million to be a middle reliever. That's not going to work. But if he's willing to
But
take,
see, that's the issue. If you're not going to pay him what you're paying him this year, I don't see a way that he comes back.
which is I think what they'll get to. I think there'll be a team willing to throw him, a whole lot of money to be a closer, and it's like, hey, good luck.
Yeah.
We've seen that before, but yeah. So that was kind of my just quick follow up point is that
Well, I to go off of your question. While you were talking there, I pulled up Archie Bradley's last 33 games is what it came out to. So since May 29th, he's made 33 appearances. This is an interesting stat. They're 22-11 in his appearances since then. Probably has to do more so with he's pitching in big spots. When they're trying to protect the lead. 1.89 ERA, David. 1.89, 231 batting average against in that time. OPS is very strong as well at only 640. He's been very good. He started the year rough. He had the oblique injury in April. He's been very good now for most of the years, pretty much since he's come back. 1.89 ERA since the end of May. So, yeah, I've been an Archie Bradley guy the whole way. So, I'm more than happy to bring him back. Like you said, I'm open to Neris as well. I don't know how much they're going to give him. Kennedy, yeah, I'd be fine either way.
yeah, and I think with Archie, because I've been critical because a lot of his analytics based numbers have not been good this year, but I think we've reached a point in the sample size where we can say we've seen two completely different pitchers. We've seen
Yes.
oblique injury Archie Bradley at the beginning of the year, and now we've seen healthy Archie Bradley, and as you just pulled up, sub 2 ERA, batting average in the 230s, whole lot of high leverage spots where the team is going on to win the baseball game because Archie is bridging them to the ninth inning. So yeah, I think he's a very valuable piece.
He's not striking out a ton, but he's getting a lot of weak contact, which I think is big. If you're not going to strike somebody out, you need to limit the damage that they're going to do.
Absolutely. And then, like I said, the Phillies can't be picky. Look, they tried to get real cute this offseason with the Alvarado and the Coonrod deals, bringing in these high strikeout guys. It just didn't really work. So if you
Get
have
outs,
these,
man.
yeah, if these older
Yeah.
veterans want to come in and get a bunch of ground balls, I mean, we've seen it with Kyle Gibson. We've seen it with Kennedy. We've seen it with Archie Bradley now. Obviously, the Phillies got to do some work on their defense in the offseason to make them even better.
Yeah.
But look, if you guys want to come back, we start fleshing out a bullpen to where we don't have to start with the Brandon Kinslers of the world. I don't know, who am I missing? There's so many other. I mean, the Chase Andersons in the bullpen.
Hold your tongue, man. Don't speak ill of Brandon Kinsler, dude. His dad might come after you.
That's a story for another time. Brandon Kinsler's dad is not a fan of Kevin. But yeah,
he is not. We'll leave it at that for now. He's not a fan.
We'll leave it at that. But hopefully we can avoid those types of situations moving forward and just kind of bring back some guys who we know can be productive.
I totally agree. And before we wrap up here, I do just want to bring up, we mentioned the Gibson trade. We mentioned Kennedy. Now, I'm not going to harp on this for long. I just want to bring these numbers to light. Spencer Howard has made 3 appearances for the Texas Rangers. The Rangers are 0-3 in his appearances. He's gone 7 innings in those 3 starts. 7 innings total, that is. ERA of 9.82, batting average against of 323, OPS over 900. David, he has been bad. Yeah, I don't know, man. It's almost as if he's a relief pitcher or something. Masquerading as a starter. I don't know.
Phillies won the trade in the short term. Let's see how it plays out long term.
No question.
Not giving up hope for my boy Spence.
Not
giving up hope.
I've said all along, even if he is a reliever, he's going to be a good one.
Yeah, he'll be a good starter. All right, so moving on. Playing the Rays next, little 2-game series. Ranger Suarez takes game 1. Zach Wheeler takes game 2. I'm feeling a 2-game sweep. I don't know what other option there is in this scenario. That's just what's going to happen. The Rays.
No question. If they're home, there's no doubt they're going to sweep.
Yeah, Rays are bad. Not nearly as well run as the Phillies. So I'm feeling a 2-game sweep.
Well, at least they got 2 of their better arms on the mound. Suarez has been a mixed bag. I'd like to see some more distance from him. They finally got him stretched out. So let's see if he can put together a 6 or 7 inning outing. And then they got Wheeler, who just coming off his worst outing of the year against the Arizona Diamondbacks, which is just insane. Tonight's a big one because the Phillies, they're facing that old fickle fella TBD on Wednesday. We don't, he's a tough cookie. They faced him a lot this year. So luckily they have Wheeler on the mound for that outing. But tonight's a big one because with Wheeler lurking, the Phillies can steal one tonight. Then that 2-game sweep's right there for you with Wheeler on the mound. We'll see how it goes. I'm kind of just, trying to bite my tongue and just see what happens.
Real quick point before we get off. I feel like the Phillies are the only team in baseball with a rotation. Like a set 5-man rotation.
They face to be determined at least once a series.
Every single series. Some teams like, I don't know who's pitching today. Like, figure it out, guys.
Yeah, my goodness, there's been I didn't realize how many there was until I started doing this thing, for our YouTube channel, where I'm filling in who's pitching each day. It's amazing how many to be determined there are in baseball.
And I'll give the Phillies, Dombrowski, Girardi, whoever, I'll give them a little bit of credit for going into the season and 4 of their starting pitchers, between Anderson, Moore, Vince at one point, and now Eflin, aren't in the rotation right now, and they still managed to build
a 5-man rotation.
And granted, Ranger, we didn't get into it today, hasn't looked great as a starter, but they do have a 5-man rotation where they're these are our 5 guys, they are going to pitch.
Yeah. And you mentioned Eflin. He started his rehab assignment as well. So hopefully, David, within the next week or 2, we can get him back to Philadelphia.
Fingers crossed. It's been a minute since he's pitched a game for the Phillies.
Lord knows we need him.
Yes, sir. All right, with that said, we've already run 45 minutes on an episode that we thought
we were going to do 20.
Yeah. Whole lot to talk about. With that said, make sure you're subscribed on Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Anchor, wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. If you want to see the overlays, the stats, whatever. We're on Twitter. We're on Facebook. Every single one of those links, along with our personal Twitter accounts, can be found down in the description. With that said, we will probably be back
Some point later this week.
some point, either after the Rays series or more likely after the second Diamondback series, that terrifying 4-game set with Arizona. But we will be back. With that said, we are the Bullpen Blues podcast, and we will talk to you in a couple of days.
Go Phils.